Alright, here we're going to graph a couple of functions or 3 examples. Now, the first thing I would do before I graph this, let's go ahead and put in our asymptote. Our asymptote is going to be here at +1. So let's go ahead and draw that in. Okay, and so that's the line that our graph won't cross. Now to graph it, what we're going to do is basically come up with the points of this function and then translate them based off the 2 and the 1. Alright, so let's go 0, 1, and 2. So if I plug in 0, I end up with y is equal to 2 times 1, or just 2. Now if I plug in 1, I get 2 times 3, so I get 6. And then if I plug in 2, I get 3 squared, which is 9. 2 times 9, so I end up with 18. Alright, now, we're not going to plot those. What we're going to do is transform them. Now, this 2 right here affects the x. It affects the domain. Okay, and so what we're going to do is end up subtracting 2. So it's from each one of these. Okay, and so what we end up with, we're going to end up with -2. -2 plus 1, okay, is going to end up giving us -1. The -2 and 2 gives us 0. Okay, now the 1 here is going to move everything up 1. So I add 1. So now we're at 3, 7, and 19. Alright, so now let's plot those points. So at -2, we're up at 3. Then at -1, we're up at 7. And then at 0, we're all the way up here at 19. And so what we're going to end up happening is we're going to have a curve here. Now remember, we're going to get closer and closer to 1, but not cross it, or not even come to it. And then we're going to go up something like that. So that would be the graph of this. Now the domain, which is the x values, can be any number, so that's all real. Now our y values are our range. Okay, our range is going to be limited. Now our range, the lowest number it can be is 1, so y has to be greater than 1. Can't actually be 1. So that's our domain, our range. Now our end behavior, we're increasing as x goes to positive infinity. Okay, because that makes it a growth function. Alright, let's graph this one. Start up, let's deal with this first. At 2. So that's our asymptote. That's the line it won't cross. Okay, now, for this, let's go ahead and come up with our points. And remember, we're going to come up with our initial points by using this. Okay, so let's do 0. I don't know if 2 will have enough room for this. Alright, so we'll do 0 first. So 0, we end up with 1 times 4. So we end up with 4. Okay, at 1, we end up with 2 times 4. So we end up with 8. And then when we put in 2, we end up with 2 squared, which is 4. 4 times 4 gives us 16. Alright, now let's adjust it or translate it. So the 2 is we're going to add 2 to it because of that. Let's move it all up 2. Now this one, we're going to end up subtracting it or moving it to the left. So let's say -1, -1, -1. Alright, so for our x's, we end up with -1, 0, and 1. Then for our y's, we're going to end up with 6, 10, and 18. Okay, so here we go over to -1. Okay, and then we go up to 6. Okay, then we go at 0 we're up at 10, and at 1 we're up at 18. So, and remember, so we're going to draw our graph, and it's going to come something down like this, and then go up. Okay, and so we've graphed that. Now remember, domain, which is our x values, is all real numbers. Our range, our range is the y values. Y has to be greater than 2. Let's look at one more example in this video. Alright, here, now our asymptote is going to be underneath y, the x-axis. So it's at -2 here. So, alright, we'll draw that in. Alright, and then let's come up with our points. So y is equal to 3 times 2 is what we're going to come up with our points with. So we're going to do the same thing. Well, 0, 1, and 2. Alright, so at 0, we're going to end up at 3. We're at 1, we're at 6. 2, we put in 2 for x, so 2 squared is going to be 4. 4 times 3 gives us 12. Okay, now let's see the effects of this. The -2 moves it down, so -2, -2, -2, so it's going to shift it down. Alright, now this right here is actually going to end up adding 2 to it. So we're going to move to the right. Alright, and so for our x's, we're going to end up with 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we end up with 1, 4, and 10 for our y values. Let's go ahead and plot those. So go over to 2, up at 1. Okay, go over to 4. I'm sorry, go over to 3, go up to 4. Okay, go over to 4 up to 10. And so we're going to get our little smooth curve that comes down like this, and then comes up a little off there. Still not exactly right, but you get the idea that we're going up exponentially over here. Okay, and so that would be our graph. The domain would still be all real numbers. And then our range, okay, y has to be greater than